You pour yourself a cold Pepsi Max, take a sip, and feel good about skipping the sugar. Your kid reaches for a Ribena Light after school, and you let them, because at least it's not the full sugar version. You grab a Monster Zero after a late shift, thinking you've dodged the calories. But what if we told you that every single one of those drinks is performing an experiment inside your gut, right now, turning your healthy bacteria into something your body doesn't recognize, something that could actually harm you? What if those zero sugar labels aren't protecting you at all, but quietly trading one set of problems for another? By the end of this video, we're going to show you the exact drinks you need to stop trusting, the chemicals being pumped into every can and bottle across UK supermarkets, and why the entire zero sugar category has been designed to keep you hooked while your body pays the price. The Pepsi Max deception. Walk into any Tesco, Sainsbury's, or corner shop in Britain, and you'll see Pepsi Max everywhere. It's the second highest selling soft drink in UK convenience stores, worth £673 million in 2024 alone, outselling almost everything except full sugar Coca-Cola. Office workers grab it at meal deals, students sip it in lecture halls, parents buy multi-packs for the fridge, thinking they're making the healthier choice for the family. After all, it says zero sugar right there on the label, and Pepsi even ran a massive taste challenge claiming 70% of Brits prefer it to regular cola. But here's what they're not telling you in those adverts. Every single can of Pepsi Max contains a cocktail of artificial sweeteners, aspartame and acesulfame, potassium, also called acesulfame K. These aren't natural. They're synthetic chemicals engineered in laboratories to trick your tongue into tasting sweetness without giving your body any actual sugar. Aspartame is one of the most controversial food additives ever approved, linked in a 2022 French study of over 100,000 adults to an increased overall cancer risk. Acesulfame K contains methylene chloride, a known carcinogen that can cause headaches, depression, nausea, liver and kidney damage, and even cancer with long-term exposure. And the truly disturbing part? Researchers at Anglia Ruskin University found that these sweeteners can turn normal, healthy gut bacteria into pathogens, bacteria that invade your intestinal walls, form toxic biofilms, and potentially trigger blood poisoning. You're not just drinking a harmless fizzy drink, you're dosing your gut microbiome with substances that could make beneficial bacteria hostile to your own body. And that's not even the worst part. The monster and relentless trap. Late night shifts at warehouses, call centres, students cramming before exams, lorry drivers on the M1. These are the people reaching for Monster Zero Sugar or Relentless Zero at petrol stations and off licenses across the UK. They need the caffeine, they need the energy, and the zero sugar label makes it feel like a safe bet. But look at what's actually inside these cans. Monster Zero Sugar contains not just sucralose and acesulfame potassium, but also erythritol, a sugar alcohol that recent research suggests may increase cardiovascular risk. It's got taurine, ginseng extract, guarana, L-carnitine, a laundry list of synthetic B vitamins, preservatives like sorbic acid and benzoic acid, and artificial colours. This isn't a drink, it's a chemical experiment in a can. Relentless Zero, owned by Monster Beverage Corporation, follows the exact same playbook: sucralose, acesulfame K, preservatives like potassium sorbate and sodium benzoate, and artificial colours including E129 and E122, which are banned or restricted in multiple countries due to concerns about hyperactivity in children. The ingredient list reads like something you'd find in a cleaning product, not something you'd willingly pour into your stomach. Yet millions of Brits do exactly that, every single week, believing the zero sugar claim protects them. But here's the real danger nobody's talking about. A 2024 review highlighted that artificial sweeteners, like the ones in these energy drinks, may cause pregnancy complications, including premature birth. Another review from the same year found a link between acesulfame, potassium consumption, and higher rates of early puberty in young girls. So when that teenager grabs a can of Monster Zero before school, or that pregnant mum reaches for a Relentless to get through the day, they're unknowingly exposing themselves and their unborn children to risks that the glossy marketing never mentions. The NHS has approved these sweeteners, yes, but the long-term studies simply haven't been done. You're the test subject, your body is the experiment, and the results won't show up on a label. The Lucozade Zero illusion. For decades, Lucozade was the drink British parents gave their sick kids. The one athletes reached for, the one that felt almost medicinal. It had a reputation, it was trusted. Then, in 2017, to dodge the UK sugar tax, the company reformulated the entire range, slashing sugar content and replacing it with aspartame and acesulfame K. Lucozade Energy, which used to be recommended by diabetes charities to treat insulin-dependent hypoglycemia, was suddenly no longer safe for that purpose because of the artificial sweeteners. Think about that for a second. A drink once considered emergency medicine for diabetics was quietly transformed into something diabetics are now told to avoid. But Lucozade didn't stop there. They launched Lucozade Zero, positioning it as the ultimate sports and energy drink with none of the sugar. The branding still screams performance, endurance, vitality. The bottles still sit in the healthy drinks aisle next to coconut water and vitamin drinks. But read the label, and you'll see exactly the same artificial sweetener cocktail that's in every other zero sugar product, aspartame and acesulfame K. The very chemicals that UK researchers proved can disrupt your gut microbiome. The same ones a 2020 study linked directly to insulin resistance in type 2 diabetics. The study showed that people who regularly consumed artificial sweeteners had significantly higher insulin resistance than those who didn't, and that the longer they used these sweeteners, the worse it got. So the drink that's supposed to help your body perform is actually teaching your cells to stop responding properly to insulin. It's the opposite of what the bottle promises. And millions of Brits are buying it because they still trust that old Lucozade name, not realizing the formula inside has been completely re-engineered. The Ribena Light betrayal. Ribena has been in British homes for generations. Parents pour it for their kids. It's got black currants. It's got vitamin C. It feels wholesome, almost old-fashioned. Then the sugar tax came, and in 2018, Ribena slashed the sugar content in its squash and ready-to-drink bottles by 55%. They introduced Ribena Light, the lower-calorie version that parents now reach for instinctively, thinking they're doing right by their children. But what replaced all that sugar? Artificial sweeteners. The exact same ones we've been talking about. Aspartame, acesulfame, K, sucralose. The ones that turn healthy gut bacteria pathogenic. The ones linked to insulin resistance. The ones associated with pregnancy complications and early puberty in girls. And here's the truly cynical part. Ribena Light is marketed directly at families, at children, at school lunchboxes. The bottles are colourful, the branding is friendly, the messaging is all about fun, and fruit, and vitamins. There's nothing on the label warning parents that their child's developing gut microbiome might be permanently altered by drinking this regularly. Nothing explaining that artificial sweeteners can disrupt the balance of bacteria in ways we're only just beginning to understand. A 2024 study on the artificial sweetener neotame, which is chemically similar to aspartame, showed it negatively regulates intestinal epithelial cells, breaks down gut barriers, increases permeability, and triggers oxidative stress. These are the protective barriers that keep harmful substances and bacteria out of the bloodstream. When you compromise those barriers in a growing child, you're opening the door to inflammatory conditions, immune dysregulation, and metabolic problems that could last a lifetime. But Ribena Light sits right next to the lunchbox snacks in every UK supermarket, trusted by parents who have no idea what they're actually giving their kids. The Volvic and flavoured water trick. You want to drink more water? You know you should. But plain water is boring, so you reach for something with a bit of flavour. Volvic, touch of fruit sugar-free, seems perfect. It's just water with a hint of fruit, right? Less than 5 calories per serving. No artificial flavouring, they claim. It sounds clean, natural, almost virtuous. But flip the bottle around and read what's actually in there. Sweeteners. Not sugar, but sweeteners. The same category of synthetic chemicals designed to taste sweet without the calories. And once again, those sweeteners are doing things inside your body that nobody warned you about. Research from Imperial College London in 2017 found that sugar-free and diet drinks don't actually help with healthy weight management the way people think. Despite having almost no calories, artificially sweetened beverages can trigger compensatory food intake by stimulating sweet taste receptors in your mouth and gut. Your brain detects sweetness, expects energy, but gets none, so it drives you to eat more later. On top of that, because you know the drink is low calorie, you psychologically give yourself permission to eat more of something else, completely negating any benefit. The researchers warned that these drinks might actually contribute to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and related health problems, not prevent them. So the Volvic bottle you thought was helping you stay hydrated and slim could actually be making you hungrier, messing with your appetite signals, and setting you up for metabolic dysfunction. And this pattern repeats across the entire flavoured water category. Brands like Smart Water with added flavours, zero sugar, vitamin water, all of them positioned as the healthier, more sophisticated alternative to fizzy drinks. But the trade-off is the same. You avoid sugar, you get artificial sweeteners instead, and your body pays a price that doesn't show up on the nutrition label. Step back for a moment and look at what's really happening here. This isn't about one bad ingredient or one dodgy product. This is about an entire industrial food system that responded to public health warnings about sugar by replacing it with chemicals that haven't been properly tested for long-term safety. When the UK government introduced the soft drinks industry levy in 2018 to reduce sugar in drinks, the industry reformulated everything, swapping sugar for aspartame, acesulfame K, sucralose, and other synthetic sweeteners. They kept the same branding, the same shelf space, the same marketing messages. They just changed what was inside. and nobody is tracking what this mass switch is doing to the British population. The UK Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition has openly stated there's a gap in data on UK population exposure to artificial sweeteners, and that it's impossible to carry out a full risk assessment because the information simply doesn't exist. The National Diet and Nutrition Survey isn't even designed to measure sweetener intake. So we're all consuming these chemicals daily, in soft drinks, energy drinks, squashes, flavoured waters, protein shakes, yogurts, desserts, and nobody in government actually knows how much we're having or what the cumulative effect might be. And when problems do emerge, recalls, contamination, allergen labelling failures, they happen on a massive scale because everything is made in central factories and shipped nationwide. One mistake at the production line, and thousands of contaminated bottles or cans end up in shops from Cornwall to Scotland before anyone notices. You're trusting the label, you're trusting the brand, you're trusting the system. But the system has proven over and over again that profit and scale come first, and your safety is an afterthought. The World Health Organization reviewed the evidence on non-sugar sweeteners and concluded there's no long-term benefit for body weight in adults or children, and observational studies suggest potential undesirable effects, including increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and mortality in adults. The British Heart Foundation, while acknowledging that artificial sweeteners are approved as safe, warned that observational studies can only show a link, not prove causation, and that more research is desperately needed to understand the relationship between sweeteners and heart disease. Even the NHS, which generally supports artificial sweeteners as a way to reduce sugar intake, admits that most adults in the UK eat too much sugar and that these sweeteners are only considered safe because the European Food Safety Agency approved them, not because we have decades of long-term human data. You're being told it's fine, it's safe, it's better than sugar. But the scientists and health authorities themselves are saying we don't actually know what happens when millions of people consume these chemicals every single day for years on end. You are the experiment, and the results won't be published until it's far too late. So what do? You can't just stop drinking fluids. You can't live in fear of every bottle in the supermarket. But you can make smarter, simpler choices that don't rely on industrial chemicals. Start with plain water. If that's too boring, add a slice of lemon, lime, cucumber, or a handful of fresh berries. Brew herbal teas and chill them in the fridge. Make your own squash at home using real fruit and a tiny bit of honey if you need sweetness. These aren't perfect solutions, but they're real food, recognizable ingredients, things your great-grandparents would have understood. When you need caffeine, choose black coffee or plain tea instead of energy drinks packed with synthetic stimulants and sweeteners. If you're buying something ready-made, read the ingredient list, not just the marketing claims on the front. Look for drinks with short ingredient lists. Avoid anything with aspartame, acesulfame K, sucralose, or saccharin. And if you do occasionally have a Pepsi Max or a Monster Zero, treat it like what it really is, a heavily processed industrial product, not a daily habit, not something you give to your kids as a matter of course, not something you trust just because it says zero sugar on the label. Most importantly, stop letting brands and supermarkets tell you what's healthy. They have one goal: to sell you as much product as possible, as cheaply as possible, with the highest profit margin possible. They're not your doctor, they're not your nutritionist. They're not responsible for what happens to your gut microbiome, your insulin response, or your long-term metabolic health. You are, and here's what makes this even more insidious. These companies know exactly what they're doing. They reformulated their entire product ranges not because new science proved artificial sweeteners were better for you, but because the UK soft drinks industry levy forced them to reduce sugar content to avoid paying the tax. It was a business decision, not a health decision. They switched from one problematic ingredient to another, kept the same branding, the same bright colours, the same celebrity endorsements, and the same premium shelf space. They bet that you'd keep buying based on trust and habit, and they were right. Pepsi Max is now worth hundreds of millions of pounds in the UK market alone. Think about the children growing up right now, the ones whose parents pack Ribena Light in their lunchboxes every single day, the teenagers grabbing Monster Zero before school, the young adults who've never known anything other than artificial sweeteners in their drinks. Their gut bacteria, their metabolic systems, their taste preferences are all being shaped by these chemicals during the most critical developmental years. Research has linked artificial sweetener consumption to early puberty in girls and pregnancy complications, yet these products sit in the children's aisle with cartoon characters and bright packaging. Nobody is tracking the long-term consequences. The UK Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition has admitted there's a massive gap in data on how much artificial sweetener the British population is actually consuming. We're flying blind, and the industry likes it that way. Next time you walk past the soft drinks aisle and see those rows of brightly coloured cans and bottles all screaming zero sugar at you, remember what's really inside. If you wouldn't willingly swallow a spoonful of aspartame or aspartame K on its own, Why would you let Pepsi, Monster, Lucozade, Ribena, or Volvic mix it into a drink and charge you for it? The trade-off isn't hidden anymore. Now you know exactly what you're swapping sugar for, and whether you keep making that trade is entirely up to you.